Hey and welcome, msKIRAspeaks. Before we get started, I ask that you watch the videos till the end, subscribe, and turn on your notifications. We're back again for another episode of Snowfall, Season 5, Episode 4, Revolutions. So as the episode opens, Cissy is back, y'all. She showed up to her old house in the middle of the night. She opens the door and she's like, hello? Because we know Wanda's been staying there. Wanda got stuff all over. I mean, her shoes and whatnot, just a mess. But nobody's there. So Cissy does, a quick walkthrough, and as she's walking through the house, we see flashbacks because Cissy's reminiscing. We see her flashback to when they bought the house, and we see her and Alton and a young Franklin. And then she just has a couple of more flashbacks and memories of Alton. So in the next scene, we see Unc and Leon. They're with the fellas and they doing some drug-ish. Some guy pulls up as, they're loading everything off. And he's, bumping this music real loud. Unc tells him to turn it up. So, he's like, all right, whatever. And he's listening. As he's listening, we hear R.I.P. Tiana. We hear Manboy. We hear Franklin's name. And Jerome is like, oh, wait up, hold a minute. The dude is just really rapping about what's going on in the hood. So he asked him where he got it. So now him and Leon, they go off looking for a dude named Maurice. And Leon is trying to tell him, like, Maurice is different. Like, he into skateboards and whatnot. Uncle's like, oh, he's a white boy? No, he's not. He's just a cool-ass black dude. So when they get there, he's on the roof just jamming, have his own jam session, y'all. Us black folks be different sometimes. So he thinks that they're there for a verse. And Unc says, you think we're going to pay you to snitch? And the other dude that he crunches the numbers real fast is like, what did he say? It's 15 hours of snitching? It was funny. So homie's like, I'm not snitching. I'm just observing the hood. And he gets yoked up with the real quickness. So Unc tells him to grab all the tapes. And he's trying to keep some because he don't write ish down. So Unc's like, you do all of that off the top of your head? So one of the dudes says, cool, so if we need to get rid of the evidence, and he holds up the strap, to the dude. Dude gonna say, y'all about to kill my whole album. I said, ninjas. So they're talking, and Unc's trying to get him to, do a quick little freestyle. He's like, he needs to be inspired or something along those lines. As they're talking, the police roll up, and somebody on the roof, they give a warning. Folks start to scurrying, and it's chaos. They get ramming in doors. They got dogs, and then we see Unc, Leon, and the fellas on their knees with their hand behind their head. And who is it? It's none other than punk-ass Bo. Oh, yes, it is. So Franklin and V, they're having their little dinner, having them a little Chinese food. And they're talking about how she don't cook no more since she moved in. Franklin says, she used to have the fish and grits and, all of that stuff. And now V is like, I don't cook, I don't clean. Anyway, he's doing it in a joking way, but he says he really does miss her cooking. So he gets a phone call, and we already know it is trouble. So he tells her the projects got raided. So she says she's down to go make sure everybody's all right. And I still don't trust her, not one little bit. So they pop in on Peaches and the crew, and they're playing dominoes, and Peaches is not on his job. He's not on his job, y'all. He is just not. So next thing we see, they're out, or maybe they never even got locked up. I don't know. But we see Unc and Leon is going off talking about the attack dogs like back in the day in Birmingham. The only thing missing was the fire hose. He was hot. So Franklin asks, what happened? They hit us hard, busting heads, grabbing corner boys. It was MF and Buckley. So Franklin's like, I thought y'all had him in your pocket. Louis says if the cops had the projects on their radar, he was probably just doing damage control. Oh, really, Louis? Is that right? Because to be perfectly honest, when I first saw it going down, I thought about how you looked at Franklin at the end of the show. But I knew she wouldn't do that to Franklin, especially since Unc was involved. She wouldn't get Unc caught up like that. So Leon, he's pissed. Unc says they came right for them and it needs to be dealt with. So Louis says she'll find out what happened. Leon still not with all the dog stuff, and he basically says if the cops come for him again, they're gonna come right back at them. Louis like, we're drug dealers, right? Like this is part of the life. But he ain't trying to hear none of that. He's on his black fist stuff, and he's like, he gonna have his people armed and ready. So Franklin is trying to get him to cool down when Cissy comes in, and she's giving out hugs, and V and her stankin' butt comes on over, and Mama Saint's like, I came as soon as I heard. Uncle's like, heard what? Uh-oh. You haven't told them? No, Mama Saint. He has not. So Unc is looking at Louie, and Louie's looking like, getting her little shrug on. So V's like, I'm pregnant. So Unc, he kind of looks happy, but Louie doesn't. But then she manages to fix her face into a smile, and Franklin confirms. Leon has a look on his face, but I couldn't put a finger on what it was because he already knew. Maybe just the whole project thing had him all out of sorts. So Unc congratulates her and says they're going to name the baby Jerome. So Louie, she goes and meets with Bo or Buckley or whatever it is you want to call this man by herself. He says it could have been worse. Worse than sicking dogs on your own people? Bo says those ain't his people. They used to call him Redbone back in the day, and he is still tight about it. So, all right, sicking him on my people then. And he has a whole attitude. She says, I told you I was going to find somebody. I bet I won't have to ask you twice next time. And Louie says she needs to know that there's trust there. He says, you do what I ask you to do, and you'll be fine. And then he rolls out. So Franklin, he goes to meet with Teddy, and he tells him about the projects getting hit. Leon and his folks. LAPD got worse since he left. Even in the last few months, the crackdown on his people has been brutal. Teddy's like, well, you're moving tons of rock cocaine. What did you expect? Considering he's moving the weight on behalf of what he thought was this grateful nation, he was expecting a little help. I mean, he kind of had a point, but Teddy didn't see it that way. So he claims he no longer has contact with the LAPD. Your father went to the press and messed all that up. So Teddy's advice is, since they're not coming after his people in the street, don't worry about it. Teddy gonna say, at the end of the day, the cops pose no threat to him because in the grand scheme of things, nobody cares what happens in South Central. My eyes got wide and he kept going. Now, if it was a white neighborhood, you could be worried. They'd have the National Guard in here, right? Child, Franklin's face was mine. I mean, what in the racist but true statement? And all you can do is shake your head. So Franklin's like, Teddy tells him to keep himself insular, only deal with his family. They can never touch you. Franklin, you know, he, like I said, after saying that, Franklin was just like, he's on some shit. So he just hops in his car and he heads on out. Leon, he goes and pays Avi a visit. He says he needs some specialty items. He's talking about rocket launchers, armor-piercing rounds, anything to F some up. Avi wants to know why he's in need of such lethal weapons. Leon says something about the other boys in blue. You plan to declare war on the police? Avi asks. Leon says, on oppression, on tyranny. I didn't think I had to explain that to you. Avi says that's true, and some uprisings he's witnessed has been more successful than others. But the conditions do not exist in or out of the projects to successfully lead the insurgency he is dreaming about. Leon's like, that depends on how you define success, because Leon's basically like, if I could just get one of them, that's a victory. And Avi's like, seems like surviving would be a good idea. And Leon is being as stubborn as a dog with a bone on this one because he's not letting it go. Avi's trying to tell him, what hell do you think would visit upon your people if you kill just one of theirs? Can't be any worse than what they're doing right now. Much worse, Avi says. But Leon, he's not trying to hear it. He asks if Avi's going to help him or does he have to take his money and go somewhere else. Avi says, as you said, these are specialty items, so give me a few days. Leon's like, all right, call me when you got them. So, Lord, they got Wanda collecting the rent, and I don't feel good about it. I told you I wanted Wanda at a desk job. We don't want Wanda back on them drugs, y'all. So one of the tenants says he wasn't paying until he got his toilet fixed. So Wanda, she fixed the toilet, but she used some of the rent money for the supplies. So, you know, she's talking to V and Franklin and V's like, it's cool. And then Cissy, you know, she comes strolling in and there's an introduction to Wanda. And I'm asking myself, I said, Cissy ain't never met Wanda, but nevertheless, they're introduced. You're the one that's been staying in my home. And Wanda apologizes for the mess. Cissy says it's fine. And she hopes it's been a safe spot. So Wanda, she heads on out. And Cissy, you know, she's talking to Franklin and V. And she's proud of what they've done. Franklin is lucky to have you. Now, we don't know about that just yet, Mama Saint. So V says Franklin is one of the most capable men she's ever met. And Cissy's like, oh, just like your father. So Cissy sits and Franklin gets to this presentation with V on the assist. But Cissy isn't there at all, y'all. She's spacing out and we don't know what's specifically on her mind, but it ain't there. We can only imagine. So Unc tells Louie Franklin is hosting a family dinner in honor of Cissy being back. Louie's like, oh, that sounds nice. What time you heading out? Franklin done really pissed Aunt Louie off, y'all. He asks if she's being funny, and she suggests they take her to dinner on another night, just the two of them. Unc says he don't like her putting him in the middle of her and Franklin's beef. He says that they need to patch it up, and Louie says she hears that, but this is not about Franklin. She's just exhausted and she just want to watch some TV. And Unc's like, I am not going to accept that. And he runs out everything that's going on in the hood and everything they didn't have to go to. And he tells her what she's going to do is show up at that dinner for him. That's what she's going to do. And finally, Louie agrees. So Franklin, he pays Leon a visit in the projects. He tells him anything he needs, just ask. He invites him to the dinner that he's having for his mom's. Leon's like, he'll never forget what Cissy did for him, but he can't. And Leon really been through it. And Franklin, he says as much. But poor Lee, he ain't been the same since he accidentally took out Scully's baby. So Franklin is like, family's important. And Leon's like, he doesn't know if that's true anymore or if his people just need him more. Folks in the projects, Franklin says. I mean, black folks everywhere. Leon be out to be a panther like Alton. Making all this money and still no power. Just putting folks in a position to get hurt, fall to the pipe, or get arrested. Franklin understands he wants to help his people. I don't know if he really does, because Franklin is like up here and he ain't been in the projects in a minute, like living there. So Franklin says he can do that and show up for him tonight. Leon apologizes. He can't celebrate while folks is out here getting hurt. Give your moms my best. So everyone, I think, except for Leon and Peaches, they show up to this nice restaurant for Cissy. And V, she kind of clowns Unc for ordering mojitos at a Japanese restaurant. They all have a good laugh, and Cissy asks for Leon. Franklin says he apologizes. He wanted to be there. He just has a lot on his mind after what happened in the projects. So she says okay, and Franklin gets up to toast the family, but most of all, Cissy. So Unc wants to talk about Franklin and V bringing in another generation. Cissy wants to know if they're going to talk about marriage. Franklin says they've discussed it. She's moved in and they have the baby to think about. They're going to have to take a beat on the wedding. So Louie asks if that's why Cissy came back. Cissy says it was the push that she needed to come back. There wasn't anything back there for her. So it was time to come home. And Franklin, he got this look on his face. So after they're finishing up dinner, they're talking. And Cissy says Alton would have loved this. Dinner with the family, knowing he was going to be a grandfather. And at this point, I'm like, if y'all do not tell us what Cissy knows already, I'm going to like blow a gasket. So Franklin tells her, you know, Unc got a horse. And Louie asks if Cissy found out whatever happened to Alton. Thank you, Louie. Thank you. So Franklin's like, well, we don't have to talk about that. And Cissy's like, not officially, but we all know what happened. Franklin looks angry. Cissy says Teddy McDonald killed him. Franklin looks over at V, and then he says, we can't say that without proof. Cissy laughs. Franklin starts spewing the same BS that Teddy just said to him about, you know, Panthers and blah, blah, blah. You saw the episode. So Cissy's like, the only man that wanted him wiped off the face of the earth was Teddy, basically. So then she asks, what's between Franklin and Louie? She's like, y'all been kicking each other under the table all night. Because Franklin is like, and Louie like, so he's like, he wants to forget about it. And Cissy wants to know, like, what am I missing? I'm like, oh, shit. She deserves to know, Louie says. Cissy looks at Franklin and he tells her, Teddy's back. Cissy's face. Yikes, y'all. So in the car after dinner, she says she wants to be there for him, but she can't fully do that if he keeps her in the dark. So V's like, oh, you know, everything's an open book, just ask. And Cissy's like, no, not that business, boo. Not that. We're not talking about that business. So Franklin doesn't want his mom back in the game. And Cissy seems to think that V is a wise choice because she was there. You know, he can trust her and he doesn't have to lie to her. So Franklin is talking real slick about his mama being in the game. Miss Cissy told him she'd been in the game and lost her husband because of it. But Franklin wants to know exactly what she's asking. She doesn't want to be a burden. She wants to help. She doesn't want to be kept in the dark anymore. So, I mean, it was a tough conversation because she never really wanted to be a part of it. She gave Franklin a whole hard time about being a drug dealer to begin. Then she kind of like got into it at the end, but you know, their life was in jeopardy. I don't have to run down the season, but Franklin is trying to get out and he don't want his mama involved in none of the shenanigans. So I'm assuming it's the next day and we see Cissy and she's walking through the projects. She pays Leon a visit and she sees, you know, all the damage from the raid and she wants him to know that she's there for him. And Mama Saint is a real one. She held it down for Leon last season like he was her own son. So he tells her he appreciates her, but he doesn't think that there's much that she can do. And then she starts talking about Cuba having 100% literacy rate and looking out for their people. Like no matter what, like everybody knew how to read and write. And that's incredible. Like, because we don't have 100% here and it's 2022. And then Leon's like, yeah, but look what it took to get them there. A revolution. Title of the episode. Leon says, and that's what he's trying to do. And she tells them there's other ways to wage a revolution. She talks about being with the Panthers and making changes without firing a shot. Maybe you should have. Cissy says, then violence would be the story and not justice. And you end up dead or in jail, and that's exactly what they want to happen. You lose, they win. There are other ways to fight, other ways to make change. There are more people in the world that want to help than you know. And Leon looked like he was taking it all in. And I had said he may be a Panther. So hopefully Cissy can, you know, help the good brother Leon out. So he's listening to Maurice's tape and he's having a drink. And I'm sitting here like, I'm about to have a change of heart because he never wanted all of this, no way. So he switches to another tape. And I thought maybe he might release the tapes and be like a producer or something. But then he hears a line about him and he gets tight. Got eyes but don't see is what the line was. So Franklin and V are at home and she wants to talk. She's like, she knows the vibe is bad, the energy's bad, it's just all bad. You downplayed Teddy, she says, and she wants to know how dangerous he is, being that he just showed up a few days ago. Franklin tells her his father went after him and lost. He wasn't sure what happened until he saw his mother. Teddy's different, maybe paranoid, all business. But as long as he can keep the money flowing, he's safe. We're safe for now. So then they talk a little bit about V meeting Cissy. V says not to shut Cissy out if she has something to say, just because he doesn't want to hear it. So she doubles back to that safety aspect and says that he told her when she moved in it was safe. But nosying around in the books, she found a gun. She got the gun. She like, look, see, that's what I found, homeboy. So he's like, he bought the place because of the security and location. The strap is just extra. He can get rid of it if it bothers her. So V's like, click, 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 handles that gun with ease and puts it down. And she says, they're safe there, but nowhere else. And he needs more than some strippers and a vet. He agrees and he's on it tomorrow. And then we talk about V's upbringing and her mom, because he asked, like, you learn how to handle a gun like that? And she's like, you know, my mama. And da-da-da. So I'm like, okay, so now was your mama a queen pin? Or is your mama a pimp? Like, child, listen. So he asked if she thinks that the mom will ever come back. And V says, if she does, we're moving to Africa. And Miss V is full of mystery and full of secrets. And I need to know, not now, but right now. So Cissy is at a diner and some guy approaches her. His name is Ruben, and he says someone named Anna told him about her, and they're sitting here having a conversation, and he says what she's doing is brave and apologizes for all she's been through. From the conversation, we find out that Cissy is back for Teddy's ass. So Cissy probably knew. That's why she came back. Franklin just gave her confirmation, which she said in this conversation, but that is why Cissy is back, not that baby. What do you need from me to do what you need to do? He knows what she wants. And Cissy says, listen, let's be clear, because he's like, you know, I know what the CIA did to you and your family, blah, blah, blah. Cissy's like, listen, let's be clear. I want answers first about exactly what happened to Alton. And then she wants to make sure that her family is safe. And then you can kill Teddy McDonald. And that is where we end. Cissy is not here to play no games with the people, and I am here for it. What were your thoughts on that episode? Please put them down in the comments. We have a lot left to find out this season, and I am in every episode, y'all. If you have made it this far, put a black fist emoji down in the comments for Leon and his revolution, because the revolution will be televised. I hope you'll come back and join me for my review of episode 5. While you're here, please check out some of my other content. Thank you. And before you go, like, subscribe, and share. I appreciate you. Peace.